Hey, good morning, folks. Happy Tuesday morning. Hope you guys are having a good morning. I'm excited this morning. Let me invite a few people on Facebook and we'll get going this morning. But I am excited um, to share the word this morning. I always definitely consider it an honor when God allows me to share the word. And so I'm excited this morning. We're going to be in Job 13 and 14 this morning. We're going to be talking about looking at it through the eyes of the sufferer, looking at it through the eyes of the sufferer this morning. And so I'm excited about this word. So prayerfully this morning, I'll say something that is an encouragement to you. Prayerfully, I'll say something that is an encouragement for someone around you. You could share the video. But I believe that we're going to see it through Job's eyes this morning. And hopefully it's going to be something that is going to bless you this morning. And so I'm excited. We're going to be in Job 13 and 14 this morning. And so let's get going. And so again, we're going to be talking about Job 13 and 14 this morning. We're going to be looking at it through the eyes of the sufferer. So this morning, we're going to be looking at Job 13 and 14 through the eyes of Job. And so let me say this morning, is that if you've ever gone through something serious or you've ever been permitted to go through something where you felt like you were the sufferer and it was hard, and you found yourself kind of up and down. Like 1 minute you was 1000% trusting God, and 1 minute you was like, what the heck is going on? Because if you be honest, if you've ever been in the thicket of something where it's not just a 1 day thing, it's some years thing, and you're believing God to change it, you're believing God for healing, you're believing God to turn the marriage around. And if you've been in something for a long period of time, if you are honest with yourself this morning, looking at it through the eyes of the sufferer, then you can attest to what Job is going to be going through in Job 13 and 14. And so again, this morning, we're going to be talking about Job 13 and 14, looking at it through the eyes of Job. Now, one thing I want to say is Job is on the inside. And so over the past few weeks, we've been seeing it through the eyes of his friends. We've saw it through the eyes of God. When we started off in Job, 1, we saw it through the eyes of his wife. She gave her commentary as to what's going on. And now we're getting into more where now Job is going to begin to express himself a little bit more, especially in my chapters, Job 13 and 14. And so again, this morning, we're looking at it through the eyes of Job. I don't want you to look at this morning through a judgmental perspective. I want you to think about what you've gone through that has been really hard, that you've asked God to take it away, or you've asked God to change it, or you've asked God to heal your body, or you've asked God to take you off of medicine, or you've asked God to do some things, but yet you had to walk out the process. And if you look at these chapters through those eyes, then you can attest this morning to what Job is going through. So again, just jumping on. Good morning, Tiff, Britton, and anybody else that's on this morning. Good morning. We're going to be talking about Job 13 and 14 through the eyes of the sufferer. And that's the way I want you to look at this morning, not through your own eyes where you are now. I want you to look at this chapter through the eyes of the sufferer, from the inside out. So again, prayerfully, I say something this morning that is a blessing, that is encouragement, that is a strength to you, especially if you are dealing with something that is very hard right now. Let me say this before I jump in. I was sharing this with my friend last night, just how it seems like there is a heaviness with many believers right now, like they're dealing with very hard things. As we go through Job, I want you to see the nature of God, not just that Job is suffering, not just that God is going to bless him, but I want you to see the character of God, because that is our encouragement, that no matter what we're going through, God does not leave us, nor does he forsake us. And even though he was silent while Job was going through things, he already knew what was going on, and he already knew the outcome. That is our encouragement this morning if you are going through something. So let's get with it. Job 13, 1 through 12. I'm going to kind of skip around. I'm going to try to stick like this, but I may skip around in the text. All right, Job 13. It says, look, I have seen all of this with my own eyes. And he's talking to his friends now, and heard it with my own ears. Now I understand. I know as much as you do. You are no better than I am. He's talking to his friends. As for me, I will speak directly to God. I want to argue my case with God himself. As for you, you smear me with lies. As physicians, you are worthless quacks. If only you could be silent. That's the wisest thing that you could do. And we talked about this the other day. If his friends may have just been a little bit quiet and sought God on what to say to him. If only you could be silent. That's the wisest thing that you could do. Listen to my charge. Pay attention to my arguments. Are you defending God with your lies? Do you make your dishonest arguments forsake? Will you slant your testimony in his favor? Will you argue God's case for him? What will happen when he finds out what you are doing? Can you fool him with easily as you fool people? Now you will be in trouble with him if you secretly slant your testimony in his favor. Doesn't his majesty terrify you? Doesn't the fear of him overwhelm you? Your platitudes are as valuable as ashes. Your defense is as fragile as a clay pot. All right, I'm gonna stop right there. Hey, good morning, Mom. I'm gonna start right there. So that's Job 13 verses 1 through 12. All right, so Job starts off and he's rebuking his friends, or he's addressing his friends, and he tells them a couple things that I want to reiterate. He says, hey, what you're saying, I already know. Like, you're telling me I'm suffering, I already know I'm suffering. Then he tells them that, hey, it would have been best if you would have kept quiet, because what you're saying is not helping me, because I have to walk this out. He's basically saying, like, you guys are on the outside looking in. So you're giving me advice on the outside, but you're not the one with the boils. You're not the one that lost your kids. You're not the one that lost your wealth, your well-being. Your wife is acting up. You're not the ones going through that. And so he says, it would have been best if you would be quiet. The last thing, he turns around and says to them that at the end of the day, you guys have been no help to me. He tells his friends, you've been no help. I'm suffering. I'm going through, and all that you have said has not one thing that you have said has been an encouragement, an enlightenment, has pushed me, has strengthened me. And so Job is like, you just been wasting words. You've been saying stuff that I already know. So that's Job 13, 1 through 12. So if we look at this from Job's perspective in Job 13, 1 through 12, what Job is saying is, my friends, those that are surrounding me, my wife, my friends, those that are actually alive right now, they are no help to me. So from Job's perspective in Job 13, 1 through 12, Job is saying those that surround me are of no help to me right now. So he's suffering. He's looking around. All of these words have been spoken to him. But Job is like, at the end of the day, when I look at it through my eyes, as the one who is going through right now, as the one who has the boils, as the one who has lost everything, nothing you're saying is an encouragement to me. So that's the first perspective we see from Job in my 2 chapters. He said, everyone that's around me is not helping me right now. So maybe you're going through something right now and you're looking around for those that are closest to you to be a help to you, but you're finding that maybe in previous seasons, what they said was right on point and it strengthened you. Maybe in previous seasons, their words were comforting to you, but maybe in this season, what you're having to walk out, it's like, man, that right-hand man, that right-hand woman, what they're saying is of no help to me. You're in good company this morning, because that's what Job's saying. He's being honest. He's like, look, what y'all got going on, it's of no help to me. It may have been better for y'all to just be quiet and sit around me and comfort me in your silence, because your words are of no help. Again, first perspective that we see of Job as the sufferer from the inside out. Let's keep going. Verses 13, be silent now, leave me alone, let me speak, and I'll face the consequences. He's talking to those friends again. Why should I put myself in mortal danger and take life in my own hands? God might kill me, but I have no hope. I'm going to argue my case with him, but this is what will save me. I am not godless. So he's addressing those friends like, what you're saying, that's not true. I'm not godless. I love God. I have a relationship with him. He says, if I were, I could not stand before God. Listen closely to what I'm about to say. Hear me out. I have prepared my case and I will be proved innocent. Verse 19. Who can argue with me over this? And if you prove me wrong, I will remain silent and die. And so Job is standing toe to toe with his friends right now. Those that are the closest to him, those that are surrounding him. And he's telling them, look, what you said is not true. I'm not godless. I have a relationship with the Father, though I'm suffering. So that counts out people who are saying that if you're a Christian, if you have a relationship with God, you shouldn't suffer. If he's a great God, why is he allowing you to go through hard things? That cancels that out. Job is saying, look, I am godly. I am a man of God. I do love the Father, but this is something I have to walk out, and I'm going to go to God and I'm going to talk to him. Why? Because it wasn't that Job was being prideful in the text, but Job is saying, I have a relationship with him. I can boldly go before the throne of grace. I don't have to stand here and listen to you give me guess. I have a relationship. I can just go before him and I'm going to present my case to him, and I'm going to come back innocent, because he's going to say that what I'm going through is just something I got to walk out. Not because I was in sin, not because I was doing this. I'm going to go before him boldly. And so the second thing we see from Job's perspective is that I'll trust even though I don't understand. He's saying, look, I'll boldly go before God. Because I may not understand why I'm suffering. I may not understand why I got these boils. I may not understand why all my kids out there had to die. I may not understand why my wife's perspective is off. I don't even understand why y'all's perspective is off. But what I will do is I'll go boldly before the throne of grace. And so the second perspective that we see from Job as the sufferer is, look, I'm going to trust God even though I don't understand. And so maybe you're going through something hard. Maybe God is being silent. Maybe God is not answering exactly what you want him to answer. But Job gives us a lesson that though you are suffering, though you are going through something, you have to trust God even when you don't understand. You have to trust the character of God. You have to trust the nature of God. You got to trust what God has done in the past and know that he's the same God. If he brought you out before, he can bring you out now. And I'm not saying that as a cliche. I'm saying that sometimes you got to reflect on the nature of God in order to walk through what you're presently having to go through. Because as I said last week, God doesn't always rescue us out of hard times. God doesn't always snap his finger and say, you know what, you don't have to walk through this. Sometimes you got to walk through the process. And so what Job is saying in 13 through 19 is, look, I don't even understand it. But what I do know is y'all are wrong. And what I do know is God's character is the same, and I am godly. I'm not godless. And so I can boldly go before the throne of grace. That's the second perspective that we see from Job in Job 13 as the one who is suffering. Let's keep going. Verses 20 through 28. Oh, grant me, God, two things, then I will be able to face you. Remove your heavy hand from me. Don't terrify me with your awesome presence. Now summon me and I will answer. Or let me speak to you and you reply. Tell me, what have I done wrong, God? Show me the rebellion, my sin. Why do you turn away from me? Why do you treat me as your enemy? Would you terrify a leaf blown by the wind? Would you chase dry straw? You write bitter accusations against me and bring up all my sins of my youth. You put my feet in stocks. You examine my past. You trace my footprints. I waste away like rotting wood, like moth-eaten coat. All right, Job stops. All right, so as we see now, Job is beginning. He's not addressing the friends anymore. Now he is addressing God. Why? Because he spent 1 through 19 addressing his friends and telling them that what they were saying was not true. And sometimes when people give you wrong advice, you've got to be able to share the truth with them, because people will think like, hey, you're in sin. And if you accept that, you'll walk away feeling real heavy. You'll walk away trying to examine every everything. But if you know that you're walking upright with the Father and people are trying to tell you something that's not true, you got to address it so that you don't take on some false accusation. And so Job spends in Job 13, 1 through 19, addressing his friends. Like, what you're saying is not true. He then moves on and now starts addressing God. Why? Because sometimes you got to move past the people and you got to address the one who created you. Why? Because people sometimes don't know everything that you're walking through. They don't understand the weight of it. They don't understand the heaviness of it. And you got to move past them and put your attention back on God. And so now Job is being honest with God. He's like, hey, what's going on, God? Why am I suffering? God, you created me. You know my path. Why am I dealing with this? Why? Summon me. Tell me to come to your throne and I'll come and you tell me what's going on. Job says, look, if I've sinned, deal with my sin and I'll get it right. Tell me if I've sinned, and that's easy. I'll repent and I'll move past it. If it's something else, God, tell me what it is so that I can address it. And if you've ever gone through anything very hard, if you've ever been in a long period of suffering for a long time, you know what Job is doing right now. He's boldly coming before God, but he's like, God, tell me what's wrong. Tell me what's going on, because if I'm enlightened, then I can carry this a little better. If I know what's going on, God, then maybe the load won't be so heavy. So he's boldly coming before the one he has relationship with. He's boldly coming before God because God created him. He's not fit to run from God. He's coming to God and saying, God, look, what's up? Me and you tight. Tell me what's going on. If my marriage is jacked up, God, just tell me how to fix it. See, if you can relate to Job, if you've ever been the one suffering. I know I can relate to Job. I know what it's like to pray for something and it's like God ain't speaking to it at all. I know what it's like to cry at night and weep and want God to lift the load and yet it ain't lifted. See, I know what it's like to suffer and you want God to change it because he has the power to snap his fingers. He has the power to blow and the whole thing can get in line and yet God doesn't address it. So I know what Job is feeling at this moment. He's feeling like, God, just tell me what's going on. If you tell me, then I'll be okay. I remember praying this prayer last night as before I went to sleep. If you would just show me what's going on, then I'll be okay. If I could hear your voice, then nothing people are saying matters. But if I hear your voice, then it makes this just a little bit easier, God. See, I know what it's like to suffer. I know what it's like when you want God just to snap it, God, and it all changes. Yet God doesn't speak. And so through the eyes of the sufferer, Job is coming before God. And he's like, God, what's up? Just tell me. If I've sinned, just tell me. If I've done something wrong, just tell me. I'll get it right. And see, if you've ever suffered, then you know the third perspective of Job. You know what it's like to go before God and be like, God, maybe I've done something wrong. Maybe that's why it's all jacked up. Maybe my finances are all jacked up because maybe I've mismanaged it. Just show me where I've mismanaged it, God, and I'll get it right. Just fix my finances. Maybe you're not married and you're like, God, if you just show me, maybe I did something wrong. If you just show me, God, where I've jacked up other relationships, I'll fix it so that you can bring my husband or wife. See, we know what it's like. If you've suffered for a while, then you know this third perspective of Job. As the one suffering, Job is going to the one who created him. He's going to the one who can easily snap it and change it. And he's like, God, if you would just show me, I'll get it right. That's the third perspective of Job as he's walking out suffering. And if you've ever suffered, you know what Job is saying. See, I can relate. Maybe nobody else can relate, but I know what it's like to have stuff going on in your body for years after years after years, and you keep going before God. God, if you're Jehovah Rapha, if you just snap your fingers, I'll be healed. If you just cause my body to line up, I can sleep at night. See, I know what that's like. I know what it's like to go before the one who created you and say, if I just need to change my eating, I'll do that. What is it that I need to do so that healing can flow through my body? And though that may be an erroneous perspective, if you're suffering for a long time, you start questioning everything. Because at the end of the day, you just want relief. That's what it boils down to. Job just wants relief. He just wants God to lift it. And if you ain't going through nothing, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you've gone through something for a long period of time, you know what it's like to just want God to snap it. You know what it's like to just want God to lift it. then you know how to relate to the third perspective of Job. God, just show me. If you show me, see, I don't know if you've ever been desperate to hear the voice of God, then you know what Job is like. God, just speak. Just tell me, God. If you tell me, man, everything will be good. If you speak, see, people can speak, but they don't have the answers. I know what that's like, to go before God and be like, God, just you speak. If you speak, I'll be good. See, everybody else don't get it, but you created me. If you tell me what's up, then I'll be good. See, I know what that's like. I know what it's like when the load gets heavy and you just want God just to lift just a little bit so I can breathe. I know what it's like to feel like you're drowning and you want God, just get my head just a little bit above the water, Father. I trust you, but I just need a little more air, God. See, that's the third perspective of Job. As the one suffering, he's crying out to the Father like, God, just show me what's up. Just show me, God. If you show me, I'll be good. And if you suffered, then you can relate to Job. If you're suffering, then you can relate to Job. If you've had a bad marriage and you've been in a thing for 20 years and you've been trying to fix it and you like, God, if you could just show up in it, then everything will be good. Then you can relate to Job. Again, we're looking at it through the perspective of the one suffering. If you ain't suffered, then this broadcast is probably not going to be for you. But if you've gone through something and you just want God, I just need your peace in it. If you just give me your peace, I can walk through this. If you just be my strength, then I got it. If you just whisper and just tell me what's up, I got it. I can walk through it. But if I got to do it by myself, I don't know that I can do it. I need you. See, Job is in a desperation and he's confronting the one that has the answers. And you can read this and be like, well, I can't relate to that. Then you don't know what it's like to suffer for a long time. I can relate. I know what it's like to suffer and still have to teach, still have to preach, still have to encourage people, still got to go to work, still got to manage, still got to deal with Angela. I know what that's like and still be in pain. I know what it's like to suffer and walk in the process, yet your life still has to go on. You still have to be who God called you to be. Though you may be in pain, you still got to get with it. You still got to go. You still got to go to work. You still got to pay bills. I know what that's like to confront the one who created you. Not that you're confronting him in a disrespectful way, but you're confronting him like, God, I just need to hear from you. I just need to know what's up. And if you look at it through the eyes of Job and all that he's going through, then you know why Job is now crying out to the Father. All right. So that was Job 13. We're going to jump into Job 14. Job 14, 1 and 2. He says, how frail is the human? How short is life? How full of trouble? We blossom like a flower and then we wither. Like a passing shadow, we quickly disappear. All right, so Job addressed his friends. Job addressed God. And now Job is transitioning into just addressing himself. If you've suffered, then you know what this is like. You address the ones around you. You go to God, you're crying out to him. And then you don't hear anything because we don't see where God spoke back to Job. So now you're starting to reflect on yourself. And if you've suffered for a long time, then you know what this is like. Now Job is starting to look at it through his eyes. Like, man, the human life, it's frail. 1 minute we're here, 1 minute we die. We're like a passing flower, Job says. Why? Because now he's addressed his friends, he's addressed God, and now he's looking at it through the perspective of addressing himself. He's like, man, I'm suffering. What is this life? One day it's going to be here, one day it's going to be gone. So now when we look at the perspective of Job, here's the fourth perspective of Job. He's now looking at himself. And as he looks at himself, he's like, look, I'm suffering now. But one day this life is just going to pass away. One day it's just going to be gone. This human life is frail. And you may look at that and you may judge Job like, Job, why are you in this sad place? Job, greater is he that is in you, Job, than he that is in the world. Job, you're more than a conqueror. See, we know how to be on the outside looking in and give people just what we think. Look, just chew on this, Job. Just chew on that scripture. You'll be good, Job. Come on, you can do it. But look at it from the one on the inside out. See, if you're the one suffering, then you're the one trying to deal with this every day and deal with this every day. You're the one having to deal with this physical body every day. If you're suffering, then your perspective may just be a little bit different, especially depending on the length you've been suffering. See, when I look at the pain in my body, When I first started, I was like a racing bull. I was good. God, you got it. By your stripes, I'm healed. God, I'm healed. I'm good. I'm good. Year 5. Okay, God, by your stripes, I'm healed. I believe you for healing. I wasn't as zealous as I was in year 1. Now, this is year 12. I'm still dealing with it, still believing God for healing. And now I'm not running as fast as I was, but I still believe him for healing. But I'm not running like I was in year 1. I'm like, God, I believe your word. If you could just lift it a little bit. God, I thank you that by your stripes I'm healed. Why? Because the longer you're in something, the harder it is. And I believe the word. I can stand like Job and say, I'm not godless. I believe the Lord for healing. I believe that by his stripes I'm healed. But it's still a process I'm walking out. See, the longer you're in it, the more you start looking at it a little different. Not that you don't believe, but you're not running as fast as you was in year 1. So Job here is like, God, when I look at the human life, it's just going to pass away. So we look at the fourth perspective of Job, and now he's looking at his overall life. Like, what is life? It's going to just pass away. And if you've ever suffered for a long time, do you know what that's like? If you've ever suffered for a long period of time, you know what it's like to be like, God, when is it going to be over? God, when are you just going to cause it to get in line? I believe you for my husband. I believe you for my wife. I believe you for my kids to get in order. But if you've had kids strung out on drugs for a long time, you're not the same way you were when you were running at the beginning. But you still believe that God can save your son. You still believe that God can heal your body. You still believe that God can repair your marriage. You still believe that God can make you fertile and you can have a child. But when you've been in it for a long time, you're not running as fast as you was at the beginning. And if you're saying you are, that's not true. You start running a little bit slower, but you still believe God. It don't mean you've given up on him. So Job now in Job 14 is now like, look, I'd have been in this thing for a little bit. This human life is going to pass away. So now Job is almost looking at it like death may be the answer. Like one day I'm going to die, and when I'm in heaven, I ain't going to have to deal with no pain. I ain't going to have to deal with no physicalness. So now we start seeing where Job is addressing himself. And I'm not saying it's right, but if you've suffered, then you know what it's like to start reflecting on other things. I'm not judging Job. I know what it's like to suffer. I get it. Now we look at verse 3. He says, you have decided the length of our lives. 3. Must you keep an eye on such a frail creature and demand an account from me? Who can bring purity out of the impure person? No one. You have decided the length of our lives. Now he's back addressing God. You know how many months we're going to live, and when you're not going to give us a minute longer. So leave us alone. Let us rest. We are like hired hands. So let us finish our work in peace. Now Job is flipping the script. See, if you've suffered, you can attest to Job. If you ain't never been through nothing, then you're like, what's wrong with Job? Why can't he just get it together? Why is he up one day and down the next? If you've ever suffered something weighty for your life, then you know what Job going through. Now he's back addressing the Father, but now he's like, God, what's going on? You know the number of our days, God. You know why we're suffering, God. He's like, why won't you just lift it? Leave us alone. Let us rest. Let us just finish our days on the earth. Now he's looking at it like God is the one who's making him suffer. Now his perspective has gone off of him back to God, but now it's in a way that's like, you're the one that is making us suffer. You know all of this. Why can't you just lift it and just let me live my life in peace? And see, if you're being honest as a believer, if you've suffered at some point, you may have just had a little bit of this thought. Like, I'm always battling in my mind. Why can't you just snap your finger and I don't have to wrestle anymore? If you're dealing with sickness and you've been dealing with it a while, you know what, Job, you're like, you could just snap and healing would flow. If you've been in a bad marriage and you're believing God to save your husband or wife, you're like, God, you could just snap this. God, you could just snap it and it all could change. If you've been in a ministry and you are serving, but yet it's horrible, you're like, God, you could just cause my pastor to get in line. See, I don't know what your story is, but I know what it's like to be the one suffering. And a little bit of you is like, God, and you're welling at night and you're crying, God, if you could just breathe on it, it'll change. I know what it's like, and I'm not going to get on this video and say like, oh no, I don't get what Job. No, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to weep at night because it's so hard to walk it out. But you believe God to change it, but it's weighty because the more you walk it out, the harder it is. So I know what that's like. So when I'm reading Job, man, I'm trying not to cry, but I know what it's like. I know what it's like when you're like, God, if you could just lift it. I'm gonna keep going, but if you could just lift it just a little bit because it's weighty. So I know what that's like. And if you've suffered, if you've had to walk something out, and you trust God, you believe God, but God he ain't lifted it, but you still gotta walk it out. And you still got to believe, and you still got to trust, and you still got to encourage people. You still got to strengthen folks. And then you got to turn around and encourage yourself. You got to encourage yourself. Like, you can do it. You got it. He's going to heal you. He's going to strengthen you. He's going to push you. See, I know what that's like. And I dare not get on this video like it's just easy. Just push. Just quote the word. No, some days it's going to be harder than others. I'm not going to lie. Some days it's going to be like, God, man, it's so heavy. But I believe you. I'm not going to stop confessing. And so Job now is going back to God like, God, if you could just lift it and leave me alone. Just let me live my days out. Not that he doesn't love God. Don't twist the text. He loves God. He loves God. He's a godly man. But he's like, God, if you could just lift it and just let me live in peace. See, that's when the suffering is hard. But yet you still believe God. All right, let's keep going. So the fifth perspective of Job is, where is God? Because I'm suffering. Where is God? Because I'm suffering. Where are you? Just lift it. Just lift it. That's the fifth perspective. And if you've ever gone through something hard, then you can relate to Job. You know what it's like. You can relate. Don't get on here acting all deep. You can relate. If you've ever gone through something hard, then you can relate. Some days are better than others. Some days you coasting and you good, you fighting. And some days you're like, God, man, it's hard. It's hard waking up in pain. It's hard getting up with pain. It's hard. You don't want to take the medicine. Then you got to take the medicine because you need the medicine. Then you don't want to take it. See, I know what that's like. But you still believe in the Lord for healing. You still believe in the Lord for strength. You still believe in the Lord for deliverance. Whatever yours is, you don't have to go through needing healing. It could be something else. Our level of suffering for each of us, God knows exactly what's going on in our lives. You may not be dealing with the battle of healing. It may be a hard marriage. It may be something else. But whatever you're suffering, then you understand Job's up and down. You get it. Because you can believe God, yet it can be hard, and you don't have to lie. It's just hard. It's hard to walk it out, but you still believe Him. All right, 7 through 12. He says, even a tree has more hope. If it is cut down, it will sprout again and grow new branches. Though its roots have grown old in the earth, its stump decays. At the scent of water, it will bud and sprout again like new seedling. But when people die, their strength is gone. They breathe their last breath. Then where are they? Verse 11, as the water evaporates from a lake and rivers disappear in drought, people are laid to rest and do not rise until heavens are no more, and they will not wake up. Verse 13, I wish that you would hide me in the grave and forget me there until your anger has passed away. But mark your calendar to think of me again. All right, I'll stop right there. So Job is now again back. He's talking to God, but he was reflecting now on what he's having to walk through. He's looking at a specific flower, like this flower, it buds. You know, when the water comes, it buds, and then at some point it's going to die because the flower can't live forever. He then reflects on in verse 13, he says, I wish that you would hide me in the grave. Forget me there until your anger is past. Not that Job is blaming God, but he knows that God has the power to fix it. So he's like, if you're gonna let me suffer, God, then I wish that you would just let me die. Leave me in the grave until you're not angry anymore. See, Job, it's not that he's blaming God, but he's like, something has to be going on. Are you angry? What's going on? Again, because when you're the one suffering and you're looking at it, it's a little different than looking at it from the outside in. If you're not careful, and I know because I have to deal with my own mind, you'll analyze everything. You'll analyze it from start to finish, how it happened, when it happened, what happened, when it happened, was I doing something, is something wrong? And then you have to just cast all that down and just know it's something you got to walk out. So when Job is looking at this, he's like, God, if you're angry, just leave me in the grave. Again, through the eyes of the sufferer, through the one suffering. So the fifth perspective of Job is, he's saying, I don't even know what I believe. Is it true? So we look at this from the fifth perspective in this text. He's like, look, I don't even know. 1 minute is this, 1 minute is that. If you're angry, leave me alone. So the fifth perspective is now Job is like, I don't even know what to believe. I don't even know, because I don't even know what's going on. And if you've ever suffered for a long time, then you know what that's like. You think you had an answer, but it's still there. And you're like, I don't even know what to believe. I don't even know what's going on, to tell you the truth. All I know is I'm standing on this word. I'm praying and believing, and I'm going to stay there. I tell my best friend this all the time. I say, some days I'm standing, man, I'm good. And some days I'm barely walking. And then some days I'm crawling. But as long as I'm moving in my faith, I'm not talking about physically. I'm talking about some days I'm fighting. I'm good. And some days I'm like barely walking, but I believe God. And some days I'm crawling, but it's as long as I'm moving in my faith. As long as I'm not always standing fighting on the word. Sometimes I'm walking with that word. I'm crawling with that word. Like, God, I believe you. God, I know. And there are other days I'm stronger. So not every day am I standing tall and fighting spiritually. Some days I'm crawling like, God, I know you got it. And when I'm weak, you are strong. In my weakness, you are strong. Not every day am I standing spiritually tall and I'm fighting. Some days I'm crawling, but in my weakness, I'm declaring he's strong. That's what the word says. Some days I'm inching, but I believe God. So I know what it's like. Not every day am I standing tall spiritually, but I believe him. In my weakness, he is made strong. So I know Job's fifth perspective. I can relate to it. I know what it's like to be like, I don't even know what you want me to believe right now. But what I'm going to believe is like, God, you got me. But I may not be standing tall, fighting. Some days I'm low and I got other people surrounding me, interceding for me. And they're tall and they're fighting and they're protecting me. And I'm crawling. But I'm moving. See, that's the key. I'm moving. But there are others surround me, interceding for me, fighting the good fight of faith. And I'm moving, believing God. And there are other days I'm like, I'm good. I got it. But I'm moving. See, I know the fifth perspective of Job in my text. I get it. All right, we're almost out of here. 14. Can the dead live again? If so, this would give me hope through it all. My years of struggling. So Job is like, look, let me die, then bring me back, healed, blessed, encouraged. If you could do that, let me know. As I would eagerly await the release of death, you would call and I would answer. You would yearn for me and your handiwork. For then you would guard my steps, instead watching me for sins. My sins would be sealed in a pouch. You would cover my guilt. But instead, as mountains fall and crumble, as rocks fall from a cliff, as waters wear away the stones and floods wash away the soil, so you destroy your people's hope. You always overpower them. They pass away from the scene. You disfigure them in death and send them away. They never know if their children growing up in honor or sink to insignificance. They suffer painfully and their life is full of trouble. So Job ends and now in Job 14, going back and now shifting it back to God. Again, if you've suffered, then you understand what Job is doing. You understand his ups and downs. You get it. If you've suffered for a long length of time, you get now, Job is now the latter part of Job 14. He's like, man, I think I just want to die. I don't even understand. You have the power to do all these things, is what Job is saying. You can just snap, you can just breathe, you can just walk, you can just put your hand. You have that ability, you know everything. So now he's bringing to God's remembrance, like, you can do it. You can easily do it. See, Job is going to God because he knows God has the answer. And I'm not going to say his perspective is wrong. I'm not going to say that, because I know sometimes I feel like that, if I'm honest. I'm not going to say like he should have just stood and took it. I know the little bit I'm dealing with. I can't imagine if I had kids and they all died and my livestock was gone and my livelihood and my husband turned on me. For him, it was his wife, and my friends, the only little friends I got, are blaming me in some way. I don't know. My perspective would probably be the same. The thing I'll point out in the text is that at least Job went to God. At least he went to God. He didn't just throw in the towel and walk away. He went to God. And I feel that his emotionalism is his way of crying out to God. And if you've suffered, then you know what that's like. You know what it's like to go to God and be like, I don't get it. I don't understand. Why is it always me? Why am I always dealing with something? Well, why I keep going through it. If you've suffered, I'm not talking about little bitty suffering. I'm talking about if you suffered something great in your eyes, something hard, you lost the car, the house, the wife, the kids left, and it's just you sitting in your car, sleeping in your car every week. That's hard. And someone that sits in a house with a wife and all that can tell you like, oh, that's not hard. But baby, you're in a cushy situation. Mine is hard. See, that's why we can't be quick to judge people, because what they're going through is hard for them. It may not be hard for you, but it's hard for them. So when I look at the story of Job and Job 14 ending, I get it. I get now he's going to God, like, God, you have all the power. You're over us. You control it all. You can snap your finger and it all changes. I get that. I know what it's like. So again, now we're on to another perspective of Job, where and I didn't say this earlier, but his other perspective was maybe death would be easier than suffering. That was his other perspective in the verses before this one, is maybe death would be easy. So the last perspective of Job we see is that he's a bit almost angry with God. He's emotional with God. He's putting everything on God. So the last perspective of Job as the one suffering is now he's casting everything on God. And it almost would appear in the text that he's a little bit angry with God because he's still suffering. And I would venture to say, and I'm not reading into the text, I'm sharing my opinion as a person who is suffering, is that maybe it's not that he's angry, but maybe he's just trying to get answers from God. Maybe he's just trying to get God to give him just if you could just tell me what's up. But he's giving God all of his emotions. He's giving him all his feelings. He's throwing it all on God. But is that not the word? Is that not the word? 1 Peter 5:7, cast your anxieties on him. It doesn't say pack them up in a nice box and wrap them and then lay them at the feet of God. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast them, throw them on God, all your anxieties. So I would venture to end this saying that I feel like Job got it. What he's dealing with was hard, and he was going to the one who had the answers. He was seeking the one who could give him enlightenment. His friends couldn't give it to him, so now he's going to the one who has the answers. So his last perspective of the one suffering in Job 14 is, God, here I am. Here's how I feel. Here's every emotion. Here's everything I'm dealing with. I'm giving it all to you, God. And I feel like that was okay. I feel like that if you've suffered for a while and you've tried everybody else, you know, the song says, try Jesus, but you've tried everyone else, you got to go to the one who has answers, which is God. And I'm not saying he gonna lift it. I'm not gonna give you that. I'm not saying he gonna speak right then and there. But who better to go to than God. He created you. He knows what you're going through. Hebrews tells us that there's nothing that we're going through that he doesn't understand. And I'm paraphrasing. He understands it. He gets it because he walked this walk out as a human being. We saw him in the garden. He was suffering. We saw it when drops of your sweat then turned into blood, like that's suffering. So he's walked this walk. He know what it's like to suffer. Now we have never gone through what he's gone through. His suffering was a whole nother level of suffering, but he gets our suffering. He was whipped, beaten, and the angels didn't just come down and heal his back real quick. He knows what it's like to have to walk out suffering. The difference is he walked it out for us. That's our encouragement. He walked it out for us. That's our encouragement this morning. And so again, that's Job 13 and 14. Let's pray. Father, thank you. Man, I love you so much, God. And I just thank you for Job as we go through these chapters, God. I thank you, God, that you are with us, that we are comforted this morning, that if we are suffering, your word says that, God, you'll never leave us, nor will you forsake us. It doesn't say that you're going to quickly lift it and change it, but that, God, you're right there with us. And so this morning I pray not only for myself, but I pray for anyone else that is suffering or going through something hard, that our strength this morning is in the fact that you are with us, Father. Our strength this morning is that we can cast our cares on you, Father, that we can give you every emotion, every anger, every frustration, every weight. We can cast it on you, God, and that you get it. You got it. You're big enough to take it, God. We don't have to package it up in a cute little bow. We can just cast it to you, Father. And you're God enough that you can handle it. And Father, this morning, I thank you for that. I thank you that you're a big, big God, that you can handle everything that we're going through, every emotional, every feeling we have. We can cast it on you. And I thank you for that this morning. I thank you for the life of Job, that as we read this, as we're studying this, God, that it is such an encouragement to know that we're not the only ones suffering, that there were martyrs, as Aaron said on yesterday, that suffered, that your son suffered, God, for us, that we're not the only ones suffering. And if others made it through, God, we're going to make it through as well. Paul was in jail, God, writing, encouraging the church. If he made it, Father, we can make it. And so, Father, this morning, I pray for every person that will watch this video, that they will be encouraged in the fact that there are others, thousands upon thousands, that have suffered, that have gone through things. Everyone's story is different, but it's our story. And so, Father, this morning, we thank you that you are our encouragement. This morning, I call on you as Jehovah Teshur. You're the God of our strength. And that when we're weak, God, we declare our strength comes from you. And so, Father, this morning, I pray for the person who is tired, who's frustrated, who's exhausted. And every day they get up and they press. I pray for the person who is in need of your healing, your miracle, your creative miracles, that every day they get up and they believe you, God, that you would continue to be with them. You would continue to encourage them. I pray for the person who's fighting on their job just to keep their mind sane, Father, that's battling with mental illness and different things, Father, that you are with them. And as they cast those imaginations down and they lay them at your feet, that they're encouraged this morning, knowing that you're right there, that everyone's story is different. But the thing that is consistent in it all, God, is that you are faithful, that you know what suffering is like, and that you are with us and you will never forsake us. May that be our encouragement this morning, that you may not just lift it quickly, but that you are right there with us, Father. And that is enough to keep us pushing. That is enough to keep us waking up every morning, putting one foot out that bed and continuing throughout that day. And Father, I thank you for that. And I give you the glory, the honor, and the praise. I pray for, before I forget, Marcus, Father, be with him tomorrow. Strengthen him, God, as he walks his walk. Strengthen him as he's studying today, God. Give him fresh revelation, Father, not only for his own life, but for us that will watch the video on tomorrow, Father. I pray for B. May you strengthen him. May you encourage him. Father, may you continue to give him fresh vision for him too. And Father, I just thank you for it, even now in Jesus' name. Amen. So prayerfully, I said something that was an encouragement to you guys this morning. Don't forget to share the videos that we have in Him too with others. Job is I don't know. It's a challenging book to walk through if you're suffering, but it is an encouraging book too to see a man that went through so much, and God didn't just quickly speak, but in the end, we're going to see where God comes through as God. And so it's challenging if you're suffering to study this book, but it's also encouraging as well to see another believer walk through something that was way greater than what I'm going through. And so I pray this morning that you are strengthened. I pray that you're encouraged. Don't forget that Marcus will be on tomorrow at 7:15. B will be on Thursday at 8. And then this Sunday, again, we're doing a collaboration at 3:30 where we're going to cover Job 18 through 21. So it'll be all four of us four of us that is in the group. We're going to all cover it on Sunday. So you guys keep rocking with us, and I hope you have a great day today. Peace.